Thank you very much. So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Karthik Ranjan, and I'm part of the AWS IoT team and looking after our LoRaWAN ecosystem here. So today I'm joined by my colleague Gaurav, and we want to talk to you today about managing both LoRaWAN as well as IP devices using AWS IoT services. So let me begin by talking about, before we get into IoT and LoRaWAN, is really what are our customers trying to do? Our customers are really looking for business outcomes. And for some of you who may have gone to the Consumer Electronics Show this year in Las Vegas in January, one of the themes that were coming out of it is that almost every device that was there is now either connected or shortly going to be connected. And you start to step back and you start to look, why is it that we're moving to a world of connectivity? And a lot of it is not just about new services and business models and trying to reduce the cost of hardware to move it to services, but you have to deliver some kind of value to the customer. And it's not just a point-in-time value, it's a value where you're developing a relationship with customer over time to understand what do they really want? What value am I getting out of my connected plant moisture sensor? Oh, I'm getting, better plant health. The plant's yielding more fruits. You have to provide that value to be able to deliver that to the customer in such a way that they are enamored with your products and services. And that really means to have a data-driven discipline within your business where you can really use that data to understand what is happening with devices and how do you use that data to improve your products over time and deliver better operational efficiency, which will eventually lead to more revenue growth because your customers are very happy with your product. It not only delivers what it says, but it's a product that keeps improving and drives them to come back to you as a supplier to buy further products from you. So how do you structure your business in such a way? If you went to reInvent last year, Andy Jassy talked a lot about digital transformation. What is a modern digital business based on? Customer obsession for AWS is number one. We start with the customer and we work backwards. And so when you think about learning from us and building your business on top of AWS, other elements to think about as organization organized for value. Are you structured your resources in a way that you're really following the model that we showed previously, which is a data-driven culture focused on value add, understanding the data and being able to use that data to improve your product or services that you have. And that means you have to have technology at the core, and you have to have a test and learn culture. You're going to be able to take the data, you're going to be able to take the knowledge that you have in the field and be able to apply that to your product or service. So again, it improves over time, which brings us to the strategic use of data. So how does that work in terms of data within IoT, right? And so when we look at IoT systems, we really look at it from three areas. One is the device software. I met many companies here who are building very innovative LoRaWAN sensors out there, things like asset tracking, agricultural applications. And a lot of the challenges are, are we going to, which OS are we going to use? What LoRaWAN stack are we going to use? How do we do OTA? There's a lot of complexity there that you have to take into control. The next thing you have to consider is then how do I then manage that device, right? How do I know it's connected to the cloud? How do I update the firmware? Which is important, right? If you're in a data-driven business where you're constantly looking to improve the service, you have to think about how you're going to update these devices in the field. But then once you do that, that's really where you come up to the higher level, which is what we have data services at the top. It's really analyzing the data, having the tools to react to the data that you're getting from these devices that are in the field. And this doesn't stop here. Once you've done that, that's just the end of version one. This is a continuous cycle to where you then use the knowledge you've gained from your data services and be able to go back and update your devices in the field, make those changes to the device so they behave better, and so start the process all over again in terms of being able to analyze and push it down. So let's take a look at the next thing you think about, which is choosing the right networks for the job, right? I mean, we're here today primarily to talk about LoRaWAN, but you have to look at what applications you really want. And so, you look at it through the context of two things, right? How much bandwidth do I need for what I'm trying to do? And over what distance do I need to transmit that? And there's a number of options based on what it is you're trying to do. Let me give you one example of an AWS customer who's using both LoRaWAN as well as Wi-Fi. This is Halter. They're a company out of New Zealand. They are solving the problem of dairy farming. And so they have these cows in the field that have these monitors around the neck, and they're helping dairy farmers to essentially know where their cows are, how healthy the cows are they getting, the exercise they need? Maybe the cow didn't walk. It's like a Fitbit for the cow. It knows how much activity it gets. Is the cow pregnant? Does it need any kind of health services? And so this employs a lot of data that they're collecting, and it varies, right? You have different kinds of cows. You have Danish Red, Danish Jersey, and they all have different attributes and characteristics. And so one of the things that they developed is a hybrid sensor in the collar, which uses not only LoRaWAN to transmit this data, but it also uses Wi-Fi. And so what happens is their data plane elements, which are the cow's health, the cow's location, that's all transmitted via LoRaWAN. But when the cow comes in the afternoon or evening for feeding, there's actually Wi-Fi within the barn. And so now that algorithm that they've used machine learning for to understand and improve the behavior, they're able to OTA a new image to that cow collar very, very easily and simply using Wi-Fi when they need to. So this is an example of using a hybrid network in order to increase efficiency and being able to constantly improve upon your product and service, as we talked about in the beginning. So let's talk about simplified management. So I'm going to illustrate the example a little bit clearer, I'm going to give a very simple example. Here we have a motion sensor that's LoRaWAN controlled with a light that's on Wi-Fi. So you have a person walking by, relatively easy to build a solution like this. But is that really the solution that you're building? No, the solution you're actually building is how do I deliver operational efficiency? Actually, the data I'm collecting is how many people walk by that motion sensor. What time did they walk by that motion sensor? And so when you start to aggregate all of this data, in this case, you're looking at when people are moving where, you start to build some key insights, right? Okay, most people start coming in, a few people at 5, between 5 and 8, it varies. People leave at lunchtime, and then you have a mass exodus, say, between 4 and 6 p.m. That kind of insight can give you insight to say, hey, maybe we keep the light on between the hours of 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. Oh, but wait, this whole model changes when it becomes winter and people are coming in later and people are leaving earlier in the summer. And so the idea behind this is really to deploy something like this very quickly and easily, and being able to apply machine learning to this kind of algorithm so that you can build that better product that's not only just going to sense and turn on a light, but it's actually going to deliver a better product and experience for customers because you're constantly learning as you're getting data from these endpoints. And this is only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger as the number of sensors are increasing. If you look at Statistica, we see 75 billion connected devices in 2025. I'm sure we have all heard very, very big numbers. And this is a trend that is not going to stop. And so it's building your business in such a way that you're ready for this tsunami of data that's going to be upon us. So what does the workflow look like for customers who are deploying this? Well, you start at the end, right? The first is to be able to generate the data. It's what we talked about earlier. It's the operating system on your microcontroller, the connectivity stack. And then it's collecting that, right? Building it, connecting it to the cloud. Oh, now I got a REST API where I'm talking to my LoRaWAN sensor. And then it's the next step, right? It's using analytics. It's being able to understand what it is you're doing. And then the reaction. Oh, this cow in this field, it doesn't look like it's well. It hasn't gotten exercise. Let's send a farmer to go and take a look at it. I'm going to dispatch an SMS to him saying, hey, here's a picture of the cow. Here's a map of where it is. Go find it. And then the next wave of it is the prediction, right? There's deep learning algorithms where you don't have to keep training data sets. You can provide it access to the data, you tell it the path that you want it to take, and it will come back and tell you. But in most of the deployments that we see, a lot of customers are still stuck building network stacks, building the basic plumbing, and not being able to get as quickly as they would like to the far right of this diagram. So what are we doing to make that easier? Well, AWS IoT has a number of services in each of these three areas to help. I won't go through all of them. I'll call attention to a few of them. We took stewardship of the free RTOS project a few years ago. And so that provides an operating system on microcontrollers that we're providing. We're working with Semtech and others to make an easy integration of LoRaWAN stacks on top of it to enable OTA. We have Greengrass, which can run on edge gateways to be able to orchestrate compute of algorithms from the cloud to the edge. We have core ingestion technology to enable you to build control into the cloud, and I'll talk a little bit more deeper about what we're doing specifically in LoRaWAN to enable that. And then we have a series of services at that top layer, the data services layer, to really help you analyze that data. And we have even more services beyond it, right? We have SageMaker for machine learning, and really providing that end-to-end capability for partners to make sense of the data that's out there. So what are we doing for LoRaWAN? So specifically what we're doing is that we're easing the glide path for partners to be able to add LoRaWAN sensors into their IoT systems. And we're doing that through a very simple workflow. We have something called Marketplace, which is like a cloud app store that we have at AWS. And so if you go in there today, you can type in LoRaWAN, and you'll see the Things network there. I'll talk about that in just a minute. And then we're working on creating a quick start. Quick start is just a CloudFormation template. So you can imagine, go through, you find a LoRaWAN network server that suits you, and then you find a quick start for that, you launch that, it launches in your account itself, and now you're able to just essentially deploy gateways. You put in the ID of the gateway, you put in the ID of the endpoints, and bang, you've got data coming into your cloud, and so now you can at least focus on the application. So it's really streamlining that. And the first part of this is, of course, getting onto Marketplace, which Things Network, Things Enterprise Stack for LoRaWAN is now available there, and they're one of our first partners to be listed on here, so we're really happy to see that. Now let's take a look at the architecture a little bit of that quick start, and I'll turn it over to my colleague Gaurav to talk to you about that.
Hello. Thanks, Karthik. I'm Gaurav Gupta. I'm a solutions architect at AWS working on the LoRaWAN technologies and integration with AWS IoT. So I'll go into the little bit more detail what we have done so far to help the community. So as you know, like everybody knows, in LoRaWAN stack, it's a non-IP stack, and in order to get the data directly into application services, there has to be a mechanism to integrate with services like AWS IoT, which is a platform that allows integration of IP data, and then it allows the other services that are available on AWS IoT to integrate well. So in this architecture, what we have done is we call this as a violet. This is the integration of a LoRaWAN network server with AWS IoT. In that case, what we do is this whole setup that you see on the right, the customer account basically gets the entire stack built in with just one click. That's what Karthik mentioned earlier. It's a quick start. What it does is it's a CloudFormation template of getting data directly from LoRaWAN's network server, which is basically the encrypted binary payload that comes from the network server, and how the different Lambda functions is able to decode. That is all built in just by one click. In this, it does set up like cross-account roles to establish and publish messages from the LoRaWAN network server to AWS IoT. It transports all the Lambda functions into the customer account, and then it registers the customer account into the network server, such that a network server like Things Industries can be a multi-tenant network server, and then the customer account can get the data directly into their AWS. This kind of explains what happens once the data from the network server is sent into AWS IoT. So this particular architecture is not something a customer need to even look at. It basically gets set up all by one CloudFormation template. What we talked about is quick start. The data that comes from the network server, it is in an encrypted and it is in a binary format. So the application session keys from the device is available only in the AWS IoT, such that the core Lambda function is able to decrypt the data, transform the data, and it is able to create the identity for these devices, such that the data coming from the LoRaWAN device is perceived as if it is coming from any IP device. Because AWS IoT is a platform which has a lot of serverless components, this same data feed can be used to interact with any IP data device. It can be used for building services, and AWS IoT allows you to integrate with 20 plus services such that the same data stream can be used for machine learning that Karthik mentioned about how many people are coming in and doing those kind of analytics. It can be used for visualization. It can be used to store data into the S3 or DynamoDB. So all of this is possible through this architecture where the customer who's interested in building application, they just get the data. They don't really need to know what is the RSSI. They don't need to know what the metadata is. And using this platform, they can integrate the Wi-Fi connected devices and LoRaWAN devices all together, and they can make it work in single platform. Going into the downlink, in the similar manner, the downlink that comes from the application can go into the Lambda function, which is serverless, and it can do the reverse transformation of converting the data that is in JSON or in a readable format to binary, encrypt it, and send it back to the device via the LoRaWAN network server. And all of this is happening in customer account. So customer has full control of their data. So the data is not converted into a readable format anywhere other than their customer account. So we talked about the setup, how this integration is set up. We talked about the uplink and downlink, and now I hand over back to Karthik on what AWS is doing in the partner community.
Thank you. Right, so to conclude, I wanted to share the ecosystem that we're building around LoRaWAN. So we talk about edge to outcome to help our customers to realize those solutions. So at AWS, we're starting at the very edge with silicon vendors. We have very strong partnerships with many of the microcontroller vendors and application processor vendors to integrate things like FreeRTOS. We then work with our OEM partners to be able to enable those to be manifested in very high quality devices. And then, as I mentioned, we work with connectivity providers, both on the gateway side as well as on the network side, to be able to provide integrated solutions. And then we partner with ISVs who are building vertical applications. So if you're building water leak, asset tracking, metering, any of these, we want to work with you and make you part of our partner community so that customers can easily find and get those end-to-end solutions from them. And then finally, we have a large set of partners with our global SIs and regional SIs who are specialized in anything from IoT to complex end-to-end solutions. So we definitely encourage you to come and talk to us. We have a booth out here. And with that, we'll conclude our presentation. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much, gentlemen. I have one last question for you very briefly. You were mentioning the customer is often at the very early stage in terms of the data collection. To what extent do you also help customers to analyze the data?
So we provide various tools, as I mentioned. We have IoT analytics, we have SiteWise, we have a number of services that are in that application layer that customers can use to gain insights very easily and be able to make the decisions that they want on their products.
Okay, so you have also assistance for that.
That's correct.
Oh, great. Thank you so much once again.